What's up, guys? Welcome back to the paddleboard build series. Now in this video, we're going to start filling all of our knot holes. I'm going to show you a little easy technique to do that. And then we're also going to start marking out the outline of the board and some reference marks that are needed before we can attach our fishbone frame to our decking pieces. Now, for this entire paddleboard project, you're going to need a 1.5 gallon kit of epoxy resin. That's 1 gallon of resin with a 1/2 gallon of hardener. Now we're building 2 boards, so we got quite a bit more epoxy than that, but 1.5 gallons should do just fine. I'll link in the description below exactly what I'm using and some other options that are out there. Now for this project, we just need a tiny amount of our resin and hardener to fill these knot holes. I'm going to be using a small little digital scale I got off Amazon. I'll link this in the description below, but this makes it really easy to measure out really small amounts of epoxy so you're not wasting any. So with all that said, let's start mixing up some epoxy and we'll start filling up those knot holes. So the first thing Will's going to do is he's going to use the aluminum tape to tape up the back of all the knot holes. Be sure to tape up every little knot that you see, even if it looks like it's something that you can't fill. Because what we're going to do is we're going to tape those up, and then we're going to pour a little tiny amount of epoxy on here to seal these guys up. It doesn't look like epoxy can come through there, but it definitely can. So we're going to tape up every little knot hole. All right, got this one all taped up. Flip it back over. So to fill our knot holes, I'm using used coffee grounds that I dried out, and I'm mixing it in with my epoxy. Once everything's sanded down, it's really hard to distinguish it from a real knot. Cedar knots are really dark. That's why we're using the coffee grounds. But if you have a knot that's in a lighter area or one that you're trying to not draw as much attention to, you could just mix epoxy with the sawdust, and that might turn out a lot lighter. If you wanted it to disappear altogether, you might have to drill out the knot and then cut a plug of wood from a different board and glue it in and sand it down to eliminate the knot altogether. All right, it's the next day. All of our knot holes are all cured. Everything is hard as rock. I'm about to get the belt sander, hit these, smooth them all out. Now, if it wasn't clear, if you have any knots that are still there, as in they're still present, but they hadn't fallen out, you just want to take some clear epoxy and seal those up. I have 2 right there, 2 right there. These are not filled with coffee. These are just the knots that didn't fall out. Those are the guys that fell out there and there. You just want to go ahead and seal those up, because once we go to put the fiberglass on, those knot holes will kind of soak up a little extra epoxy. We don't want that. So just go ahead and hit those with a little bit of epoxy to seal all of those little knot holes if the knot is still present. So I'm going to get the belt sander out. We're going to hit these kind of lightly, knock them down flush with the rest of the board, and go from there. Just finished sanding those knot holes, and this is what that looks like. It'll look really good once we get that all wetted out with epoxy. That'll blend right in. I just think this is a really good repair. It's a lot easier than trying to find and pull knots from a different piece of wood. If you wanted to, you could find some knots of similar size, pull them out, and replace this and epoxy that in, but I think the epoxy coffee grind trick works really well. I really like how it did on this board. You can see all these are knot holes here and here, all the way those 4 up front. Filled everyone with epoxy and coffee, and it looks really good. All right, so if you come across a little imperfection like this is just where the wood didn't join very well right here. I'm going to show you guys how to fix that. It's a real quick and easy solution. What we're going to do is just going to take a little bit of super glue. Put super glue along here, just like that. Then we're going to take some sawdust that we have in the shop. Just going to rub that in to the super glue, just like that. Just let that set up. You can even go on top of it if you want to. All right, we're just gonna let that set up and then we'll sand it down. All right, it's only been a couple minutes. This should be just super hard. You can't even put a thumbnail mark in it. Now we're just gonna get the sander. We'll sand that down real quick. And this is what it looks like after we sanded. Can hardly tell that anything was even done there. But yeah, just want to show you kind of like a quick, easy way to fill some little voids here and there. You obviously don't want to fill, a knot hole with super glue and sawdust. You need epoxy for that. But for smaller things, like these little tiny cracks, you can fill with super glue and sawdust.
Now that the holes are filled in the decking, it's time to get out the outline template so we can get the decking cut down closer to the shape that it needs to be.
All right, we got the outline template out on my board. We're just finding center line on my board, which for me is going to be right in the middle of this accent piece here. So we'll just split the difference, line this up about like that, and we'll tape it down, make an outline.
Dude, you are like pretty much exactly a centimeter.
Just do it, yeah.
How do we mark that, sir?
We did like both lines, like on like an extension of this line.
Oh, okay.
Remember that? Yeah, I think so they line up on me. All right, now that we have the outline done, we need to add in a few reference marks so that when we go to attach the fishbone frame, we know where it goes just right. So the first thing we're going to do at the nose, and this will come into play later, this will make more sense, but at the nose we're going to measure 6, 7, 8 inches, make those marks, and then we'll use a square to measure straight lines on those marks. And then at the tail, come back here, measure 3, 4, and 5 inches, and then make straight lines here. After those are done, we're gonna lay out the spine of our fishbone frame, and then we're gonna mark where each rib goes all the way down, and we're gonna make a line all the way across so that we know exactly where to lay the fishbone frame once we go to attach it to our bottom panel. So we're going to get all this measured out and marked up.
All right.
Mm-hmm. So what we're doing is we're laying out the spine and we're gonna make a mark where each rib goes. So we're gonna just kind of roll the spine down to match the curve and then make a mark. We just did it here. You can see our little tick marks each spot. Now that we have those marks, we're gonna get a square and mark across the board all the way down so we know exactly where each rib is gonna go so that we can glue that down. All right, we made another outline mark just about 1.5 inches wider. As you saw, we just used 2-finger width this just gives us a little extra room here. So we're gonna cut this board out. We're gonna cut on this line instead of this line just in case we need a little extra room. And then later on in the build, we'll trim this up. You'll see that later on. So we're about to get this thing cut out right on the outside of this line. All right, it's starting to take shape.
I like it.
Starting to look like a board. This looks really good.
All right, guys, that's where I'm going to wrap things up in this video. I hope y'all like the little trick with the coffee grounds. Y'all let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to do so. We got a lot more coming in this build series. Now, in the next video, things are going to start taking shape. We're going to get the fishbone frame out that we cut out during the first video, and we're going to attach that to our bottom decking. So y'all be looking out for that, and we'll see you in the next video.